And gold happens to do a very good job of absorbing a lot of those inputs and then storing them for a subsequent transaction. That's all it does.
So you say study the periodic table of elements.
Yes.
Right? So gold is number
79.
79. I often use that myself by proving my high school chemistry class and hopefully getting it correct. And I know your partner, Josh Crum, who comes from a geology background, loves to get into the actual geological properties of gold, and that it has all the unique characteristics that make it perfect for money. And so what you're saying is on the macroeconomic world, Russia is recognizing that you take labor, you take energy, it stores, it can be used for trade. But is there a fear now that we are reaching the end of this U.S. dollar hegemony, of the U.S. dollar as world reserve currency? If Trump, as we've discussed earlier, is going and redrawing all the trade negotiations, is there a thought that we need to protect ourselves against having all this stuff going awry, and we're heading back to very basic trade in gold?
I think it's a real possibility because, first of all, if you're not living in the U.S., you're at a great disadvantage today in terms of the chess game. Trump is really ahead of everyone by 3 or 4 moves. And I think that their only way for Europe, so Europe can't engage in reciprocal trade. So what does that do to the euro? Does the euro survive? Russia can engage in reciprocal trade with the United States, but at the moment, that doesn't seem to be an option for them. And I think Russia has much more important trading partners like China. I think that the way people should think about it is they should always be allocating a portion of their savings to gold. And that portion that they allocate to gold will always be available to them in the form of purchasing power. The same equivalent purchasing power doesn't always work every year, but it works really, really well if you stretch the arrow of time. There's a wonderful book about this. It's called The Golden Constant by Roy Jastrom, who is a Harvard economist. And it really shows how gold maintains its purchasing power over thousands of years. One of the nice ways that he does it is he says a Roman senator's toga was 1 ounce of gold. A Brooks Brothers suit in the 19th century was 1 ounce of gold, and a new Italian suit today is 1 ounce of gold. So the gold is simply preserving purchasing power. It's not making you rich, and it's certainly allowing you to avoid being poor.
Now, you speak about Trump playing 4D chess. You speak about Trump as being, mastering the game. You're speaking about Trump in very positive ways that I would say most of America doesn't share. He's constantly being attacked, and he's being vilified, and he's being shown by mainstream media as being a character that is reprehensible in many ways. And what are people missing about Trump? Because when you talk about Trump, I travel the world and I look at the global economy and the U.S. economy, and I share a lot of your views there, that he is actually doing some stuff that makes a lot of sense from pure economics point of view. But what is the media getting so wrong about Trump? And are they, they looks like they're going to fail miserably in this 2018 election cycle and the 2020 election cycle. They're dedicated to scapegoating Russia for the failings of the Democrats and Hillary. And yet, if they looked a little bit more closely, they would see this guy is actually making some good moves. How can you break through that sound barrier, do you think? It's kind of an odd question, but.
So I want to be clear. At Gold Money, our policy is always to not make any political comments. So I can't make a political comment about Trump, whether I'm for or against him or not. But what I can do is make economic observations. And I think it's unequivocal that Trump's economic moves are the right moves. There's a lot of talk about this concept known as mercantilism. I'm sure you know a little bit about that. And a lot of the Austrian economists especially, and the modern Keynesians seem to share the same view that mercantilism is terrible and Adam Smith proved it doesn't work and this and that. I actually think that mercantilism is exactly the way one should run their country. And all it means is that you don't run trade deficits and you accumulate metal, bullion, or some form of surplus. I think that's very sound advice. I have personally seen members of my family be very poorly impacted by the policies of the globalists over the last 20 and 30 years. People that were involved in the industrial economy and the manufacturing side. I have seen a lot of the nonsense emanate from Ivy League schools and think tanks saying that automation and people have to learn new trades and new skills and robots are going to solve everything and scarcity is a man-made invention and all this nonsense that I can, given my understanding of economics and observing reality, dispute. We're producing more steel than ever in the world. We're producing more oil than ever. We're producing more automobiles than ever. There's absolutely no reason why the United States should have seen its manufacturing base hollowed out, its good, high-quality jobs hollowed out in lieu of really gig economy service jobs.
Okay, so just to be clear, so with mercantilism, you have a mechanism to periodically balance the books.
Correct.
Right? So if a country is running huge trade deficits, then at some point gold is swapped and the books are balanced.
Correct.
And so it's a way to put a limiter on what we see the excesses in monetarism, where you've got money printing leading to malinvestment.
Correct.
Right? And you have...
It demands of the state the exact same principles we demand of the citizen. Why does the citizen have to balance their books and the state gets to run deficits? And a trade deficit, sometimes I find myself reflecting on this, and I think a trade deficit is even worse than a budget deficit, especially when you have free flow of capital, when you can take the capital back and instantly recycle it back, and then you're not just hollowing out the manufacturing base, but you're also selling your assets to your competitors.
And of course, with gold, you have individual sovereignty, make your own little mercantilist policy. Individual sovereignty, that's the key. And gold money, we're investors. Monet is a spinoff of gold money. And you've got some other things you're cooking up in the back room of the Roy Sebag brain, which we can hopefully talk about next time you're on.
Thank you. I would love to.